Hello everybody, let's start our webinar. Today we'll talk about Rapise 7.3 and its new features and enhancements. My name is Denis. I'm working on Rapise for many years and I am test automation expert at Inflectra. So here is some information about me. So what's new in Rapise 7.3? A full list of changes, enhancements, and bug fixes you may find using this address. So you may go to rapise.inflectra.com and click on release notes, and then you will see all the changes. And the agenda for today, we'll talk about Selenium-based Web Recorder. This is the main feature of this release, and we'll devote most of the time to this feature. Also, we'll talk about Shadow DOM support. It's just the beginning of Shadow DOM support in Rapise 7.3, but there are some things that you already can do with it. And also, we have some Spira Dashboard enhancements in this release. There is an execution plan for a test set, so you may see in advance how a test set will be executed, what test cases, with what parameters, and in what order. Also, we have a CSV editor for test set attachments, easier way to build data tables to use them as an input to test set execution. And also, we implemented central storage for Git Credentials. And instead of specifying Git Credentials for every test set, there is now a way to do it once and then reuse across different test sets. So let's talk about all these features in more details. First, we'll talk about Selenium-based Web Recorder. This is a new feature. We already have Rapise native web recorder that you probably used many times. And now we know that Chrome will make extensions like the one we are using for recording unavailable in the beginning of next year. So we decided to switch to Selenium-based web recorder. So we implemented it, and now I will present you the base features of this recorder. So it allows to do some things that were not possible with native web recorder, and also it supports everything that was possible with native web recorder. So let's go through these things one by one. So first, let me create a new test in Rapise. So go into File, New Test, and let's create it locally. So Rapise 7.3 webinar. So I am choosing web. Now, when you are creating a test, you also see Selenium profiles in the drop-down. And Selenium profiles are at the top because the recommended way of recording tests now is using Selenium Chrome and Selenium Edge profiles. So I will use Selenium Chrome. Okay, RVL, and I have an empty test. So no Chrome is running, and I just click on record button on the toolbar. Rapise starts new Chrome, and since there is no initial URL, now we have this initial URL prompt. So here is the drop down. So you may change, edit the value here, and Rapise remembers few last URLs that you used, and you may choose them using this drop down. So I am going to do recording with library information system. So this is the URL, and I click OK. Here is the navigation in Chrome, and you can see that Rapise recorded navigator open to library information system. So this is our initial step. As usual, I will be interacting with the application and Rapise will intercept my steps. So clicking on the login, entering username, password, clicking login, logout. Also, the new feature of the Selenium recorder is it is able to record multiple tabs. So now I will click on Inflectra Corporation link here and it will open new tab here. So Rapise so far recorded just the click on the link. So now I will click on this title on the new tab. Here we go. And in the recording activity, you can see that Rapise recorded a step that switches to another tab. So here is Navigator Activate window and the title of this window. And this is the click on my element. So I may now switch back to the previous tab and click somewhere else. And you may see that Rapise recorded switching to another window again. And here is the click on book management. So now I will simply close browser and click finish. And I am appending my steps. You may also see that since I closed the browser during recording, Rapise recorded navigator close action here. So this is our scenario. Opening the new browser, doing login, logout. Then we click on Inflectra Corporation link, switching to a new tab, clicking there, switching back to the first tab, clicking there, and then closing navigator. So let's play this test. Okay, so playback was successful. I already demonstrated initial URL prompt, and now I'm going to show you the automatic download of browser-compatible web drivers. So if you worked with Selenium, you know that to interact with browsers, Selenium needs such executable files like Chrome driver, MSH driver, Gecko driver to work with Firefox. And depending on the browser version, there are also different versions of those executables. Rapise now performs downloading from trusted sources of these executables to work with browsers. The place where Rapise places downloaded WebDriver executables is here. So it is C drive program data, Inflectra, Rapise, Selenium driver. And when Rapise downloads a driver, it saves it with version information. And the last used WebDriver is the executable with no version information in its name. So it means that if you're using browsers of different versions, Rapise automatically detects what, for example, Chrome driver version to use. And Rapise is able to even switch between these WebDriver executables. So in the previous versions of Rapise, for example, in Rapise 6, you had to go to website, download these executables, place them in a specific folder. Now it's all completely in the background. All right, so the important and very great feature of the new recorder is that you can now easily separate your browser for browsing and browser for testing. It means that I can open Chrome, normal Chrome, go somewhere, do browsing, go to some page, and I can now go to my test, click play. It will not use the Chrome I'm using for browsing. It will launch the new Chrome instance with a fresh profile with empty cache by default, and test playback is in this fresh Chrome instance. So previously, with native Rapise Recorder, you had to close, in ideal case, close all the pages and have just your application under test opened in Chrome, and then work with it. So with new recorder, you can do your normal browsing, search for some interesting things on the web, and play your test in a separate instance of Chrome. So the next thing is that, so all features of the native web recorder, web spy, flash, and also RVL play selection. So let me demonstrate that. So let's just play a part of this test. So I will play this part, opening the browser, logging in, logging out, play selection. So new browser instance is opened. And since there is no navigator close command, the browser will remain running. It means that now I can do usual things I can do with native Chrome Rapise Recorder. So I can launch Web Spy and examine the web page. Let's see. So here is the Web Spy. It has all the highlighting. I can do tracking. I can find the element that I need. Control T, here we go. So everything works like with normal native recorder. Let's do cancel. And let's now, for example, do flash. Oh, there is no username here. I can click on the login myself. And let's flash username. Flash also works. Okay, here we go. So this is the new recorder and its features. What's next? Next, we will talk about Shadow DOM support. So what's possible in Rapise 7.3? In Rapise 7.3, you may launch Web Spy. You may see Shadow DOM elements in Web Spy. You can select the element that you need in the DOM tree. You can create and edit XPath expression to find this element, and you may learn the object and add it to Rapise object repository. It's not possible to do recording for Shadow DOM elements, but you can learn objects and add them to object repository. Let me show you how it works. I will start another recording session. So let's close Chrome, and I'm going to use different initial URL here. Okay, I will go to uitestingplayground.com. And here among the samples, I have Shadow DOM. Clicking here. So this control here, GUID generator, is a shadow root, and inside it, it has an input field and a couple of buttons. So let's now launch Spy. Okay, and track. Here we go. So if an element is a shadow root, then you can see this shadow root indicator at the end of the tag. And in Rapise 7.2, for example, it was the last node you could see in the DOM tree. But with Rapise 7.3, you can now dig into shadow root. And if there are other shadow roots inside this shadow root, you can view them as well. So let's click on some items within this shadow root. And for Rapise to be able to view this shadow root, it should be shadow root open. If it is shadow root user agent, Rapise won't be able to view contents. So let's double click on the input to see the selector for this element. To make it easier to create selectors for shadow elements within shadow root, we introduced a new delimiter in a selector. So it is add #add. So if you used Rapise before and you worked with iframes, we had a delimiter 3 add signs, and it designated the borders between iframes. And this new delimiter designates the border between light DOM and the shadow DOM. And if there is another shadow DOM layer, then there will be another delimiter like this one, add #add. And what's important about shadow DOM is that when you are searching for an element within shadow DOM, you can only use CSS. So it's not possible to use expect expressions at the moment, but you can use CSS. And here you can see CSS equals, and then there is CSS expression automatically generated by Rapise for this input element. If you don't like what is generated by default, you can edit expression yourself. So for example, there is just one input here, and we can make this expression short. So let's test it. All right, works. And let's learn it. So here we go. This is our edit field element added to object tree, object repository. And let's now also learn some button here. Testing works, learn. Okay, so we have an edit field and we have a button. Let's now finish recording. And I will place my actions on the new sheet. Shadow DOM. Let's insert here. Rapise by default recorded just opening the URL, clicking on Shadow DOM link. But we now have 2 new objects in our object repository, and I can add steps manually. So I will use edit field. Here I will use do what we can do with edit field, enter some text. So no grid. And let's click on button generate. Here is our test. And let's do, okay, let's simply use this part. I will select the lines I want to execute. I will do play selection. Okay, so what happens? Oh, our object is not found, shadow DOM. This is correct because there is no such an object here, and we connect it to the opened page. All right, so let's close the browser. Let's go here and let's play selection. So text entered, button clicked. This is how you work with Shadow DOM in Rapise 7.3. Okay, what's next? Now we'll talk about Spira Dashboard improvement. So the new thing that we added is test set execution plan. So I am now going to Spira Dashboard and go into a test set. And for example, here is the test set, all browsers. Let's expand it to see what's inside. So inside we have 5 test cases. Every test case is marked that we can run it in parallel. Also, if we will scroll down to properties of this test set, we can see that we have run tests in parallel true. And also we have unroll input data for parallel execution. So it means that if we run this with input data file, then for each line of this data file, we will run all the test cases in parallel, and all these test cases also will be run for all the lines in parallel. So everything will run in parallel. Okay, so now I'm going to action, and here is the new item, show execution plan. Here we go. And here we see the sequence of execution. So if we would not use this parallel flags, then let's do this actually. So I will deselect this running in parallel, and I will remove this unrolling. So let's go show execution plan. Here we go. So we see the sequence. So this is how our test cases will be executed. So first we'll go with the first data line, Selenium from librarian, and this is the sequence of test cases that will be executed. Then we will go with the second data line, and then with the third data line. When I'm talking about data lines, I'm referring to this file, browser CSV selected as input data. And we can move mouse over this file and we can see the data. So this is actually the new tooltip that you can use in Rapise 7.3. So no need to open the file to view its contents. So here is this one, and this is the browser CSV. So first we run on Chrome, then on Firefox, then on Edge. And let's now say that we want to run our tests in parallel. Here we go, execution plan. And here we see that this line, this column is in green. It means that within each groups, C1, C2, C3, test cases will be executed in parallel. So first we will execute everything on Chrome, then we will execute everything on Firefox, and then on Edge. If we will set this checkbox, unroll input data for parallel execution, we will see that the first column is also colored here. It means that everything will run in parallel. Okay, so this is the test set execution plan that you can view for a test set. So now let's switch to CSV Editor for test set attachments. You already saw the new tooltip. And also here we have the new editor. Here we go. So in Rapise 7.2, you would see just the text area box here and comma separated values. And now in Rapise 7.3, you have CSV Editor. So here you can add new columns, rename columns, delete columns, and add new rows. So it is editable. You can add lines here. So for example, let's add the new row and let it be, no, let's use the native selector, librarian, or let's use another user. Here we go, saving. And now we can see that the new line appears in the tooltip. So CSV Editor is an way to easier edit your CSV file in Spira Dashboard. All right, so the next feature is a central storage for Git credentials. So let me open some test set here. This one. Test. All right, yeah. So here you can see an old way for Git credential storage. So for each test set, if you are storing your tests in Git, not in Spira, and you want to Rapise launcher to be able to clone files from Git repository, you need to specify Git credentials for a test set. This is an old way. So here is the Git URL, Git user, Git password, and you had to do this for every test set that you're executing. So there is a way to test Git credentials here, but the new way is different. So let's expand all browsers note here. Okay. So here, if you will update your custom properties for the dashboard, by the way, if you don't see Git credentials in your product, just go to Spira Dashboard main page, and here use click create custom properties for Rapise, and Rapise will create missing custom properties for Spira artifacts. So here we go, returning back to test sets. And now here we have Git credentials, and here we see the drop down. And in the drop down, we can choose the name of configured Git credentials. So here I have just one, Rapise demo. And how to specify those credentials? To specify credentials, go to Spira Dashboard. And here at the bottom, there is Git credentials button. So clicking on it. And here we can see configured credentials. So this is the name that appears in the drop down when you choose Git credentials, and some details. So usually it's just the URL to understand what these credentials are about. You can delete credentials, you can edit if you need them, or you can add a new set of credentials. This demo 2, if I will test it successful because there is no URL. Anyway, let's save, closing it. If I will go to test sets, here I should see my new set of credentials. Yeah, Rapise demo 2. Okay, but you can still use these custom properties as well, and they are applied after Rapise reads these Git credentials. So, for example, if you want to specify Git branch for a specific test set, then you can do it for each test set you create for each branch to run on this branch some tests that you have in Git. Okay, so I think it was the last item I wanted to show. So thanks for your attention, and we are opening for Q&A. If you have questions about any features that I just showed you, feel free to write a question. Okay, no questions so far. In conclusion, let me show you where you can get more information about this new release. So go into rapisedoc.inflectra.com. This is the release notes link. Here you can click on Rapise 7.3 since it's the last one it is opened automatically. And all links here are clickable. So when you click on the link, you are navigated to a page that provides more information about the topic. So these are the new features. We also added a few actions in Rapise 7.3. So for example, you can specify position of a desktop window with global set window position. Also, you can set window size. This is for people who do desktop testing. Also, we added duration parameter for mouse move for desktop applications. WebDriver has now back, forward, and refresh actions. So if you need to do back, forward things in your web test, then you can do it in your Selenium tests. All right, so Rapise now can record keystrokes and tabs in desktop applications. So there are a few smaller features in this release. So again, thanks for your time. Wish you good luck using Rapise for testing, and see you in the next webinar. Thanks for attending. Have a good day. Bye-bye.